Well, let's talk about that, though. Let's talk about who are the best teams in the East. Who are the contenders? Who can come out of there? To me, let's start with that conversation. Philadelphia has the best record.
Yeah.
Like, Philadelphia has the best record. They have been – Joel Embiid is playing at an MVP level. Doc Rivers has found a way to get Ben Simmons the ball in transition and have him involved in the offense. But when it bogs down a little in the half court, it's been the Tobias Harris show. I like them a lot. They've been phenomenal in the regular season. I think, to me, the question is, it just becomes harder for big men to get the ball and be successful in the playoffs. Like, I can zone them out. I can make it hard. You can't just lob it into the post. And yes, Joel Embiid can do more than that, but can he have the same level of success in the postseason?
I think all you have to do is look to Anthony Davis and see what he did in that playoff, basically the entire playoffs last year. He dissected, every defense he had, basically had his way. And obviously LeBron James was finals MVP, and LeBron was taking over games when he needed to. And he was facilitating. But, make no mistake, what Anthony Davis accomplished in the playoffs was nothing short of remarkable. And that was almost like a throwback to the 90s as far as being able to just run the offense, the big man. But I think it's a matter of being multiple. And we've talked about this before. If you have a guy that is as dominant as Joel Embiid, sometimes it's as easy as just getting the ball on the post and let him go to work. He has so many moves. He can just take any move out of his whole little basket of goods there. But I think there's also a point of, like, how do you uncover him, right? And to use football language. And I think that a guy, like Alabama used that for Devontae Smith so beautifully. He was the best player in college football, undoubtedly, but they put him in different positions to uncover him and create mismatches. And that's what these basketball teams are going to have to figure out for a big guy like Joel Embiid. Sometimes it's going to be as easy as seal in transition, get him the ball on the low post. Other times it's going to be, how do we create a situation that we can manufacture mismatches for our star big men?
Yeah, again, and by the way, Joel Embiid's face-up game got a lot better this year. Like, that's one of the things, his face-up game's better, which makes him far more dangerous in ability to go, because who's staying in front of him? Like, he's just going to overpower a lot of guys, especially if you can get a switch even onto a modern four. They're just not going to be able to handle Joel. So I think that there's a lot of potential there. What do you think of Brooklyn?
I think Brooklyn is, it's only a matter of time. For me, it really is, Kurt. I feel like right now they're trying to figure out who they are. And that's the thing that makes Philadelphia so interesting, is they already know their identity. They found their identity, and right now it's about perfecting what they do. Brooklyn is practicing in real time against other NBA teams, and they're trying to figure out what exactly is our identity, who closes out games, who runs the offense, how do we play defense together? Like, they were trying to figure all that stuff out on the fly, but it's only going to be a matter of time. And then when they figure it out, it's going to be, I don't know who could take them out. What do you think of them?
As we speak right now, it's been 13 games since the Harden trade, and they're 7-6. Their net rating is basically flat. Kyrie used the word average the other day. Frankly, they've been pretty average, but they've also only had those big three together for 6 of those 13 games. Like, they just have not been on the court enough as a group. And when that happens, I think I'm with you. I think, look, the defense is a legitimate concern. It's been worst in the league since the trade. It is a legitimate issue, but how many stops do they need? Like, once you get all 3 of those guys there, you just need enough stops to win. I think we saw that against Milwaukee last week. Like, they're going to be good enough, I think. To me, they're still, if you made me pick a team, I'd probably pick them, just because I think that there's enough time for them to figure out the defense, make some moves if they need to, get somebody to help DeAndre Jordan inside and protect the rim a little. And from there, like, they only need to get enough stops to make that offense work. So to me is enough, man. Talent ultimately wins out. Could they beat the Lakers or somebody out of the West? That might be a different conversation. But in the East, I don't know that anybody beats them.
I think the only comp that we can see that, with what you just said, it's a great point, is with the Clippers last year. How many games did that starting 5 play together? And they didn't really play that many until the end of the season, and they didn't have the chemistry, and it showed in the playoffs, right? So that is going to be another concern for this Brooklyn Nets team, is to avoid what happened to Los Angeles, the Clippers last season.
Yeah, exactly. You can't flip the switch, man. Unless you've already flipped it. And like, can the Lakers flip a switch this year? Yeah, I'll let them. Like, but if you haven't flipped it before, you don't get to flip it for the first time in the playoffs, right? Like, you're going to have to earn that. You mentioned Boston the other day. Are you still high on their chances of potentially coming out of the East?
Yeah, they played a pretty strong game against Utah, but Utah, I mean, they're just unbelievable right now. Kurt,
They're playing
16 out of 17. I mean, they are playing crazy basketball. But
they're
yeah,
great now, aren't they? They're just
they are playing another level. But no, yeah, I think with Boston, they're showing me that they can play in these big games. They can play against the championship caliber teams, the 1s, 2s, 3s of the league, consistently, and they're showing that they got a lot of fight. I think right now they just got to figure out a couple. They got to tinker around a little bit because it's just, as we saw last night, it wasn't enough to beat the Jazz because Donovan Mitchell just took over, and Tatum didn't take over until late in the game. It wasn't enough. Jaylen Brown started off hot, but then couldn't finish strong. So I think right now Boston just has to figure out how do they just shore up a little bit of that, the perimeter, if you will, to make sure that it's consistent every single night. But man, they look good.
Yeah, they've also got the advantage of three great perimeter defenders, right? They've got Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and when healthy, they've got Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and Jason Tatum. That's a lot of that's a lot of good wing play. It's going to be tough to match up with. If they can just get a little more from Kemba Walker and some consistent play in the paint, and I know they've been looking at bigs as a potential trade or free, signing later. If they can just get through that, to me, like that wing play puts them in play, by the way, and makes them maybe the best team in the East to match up with Brooklyn. Like, if you're going to have to go head to head with them, at least you've got the defenders. You know who we haven't discussed in this? Milwaukee. We should not be leaving Milwaukee off this list.
Yeah. No, we should not. No, we should not. I think Milwaukee. It's almost like a Warren Buffett investment meeting. I feel like it's like you buy a good company and you hold it forever. And then every meeting is the same. Geico's still going up. Coca-Cola's still going up. That's how I feel like with Milwaukee is, I mean, the updates are the same from week to week. It's the same thing that they needed. They're still playing well. They're number 2 in the East. Giannis is still, back-to-back MVP. He's playing like it. Chris Middleton is growing into his role. Drew Holiday is like a nice addition. Everything is just kind of like, okay, we'll check in 60 games in the playoffs and see what's up. But yeah, Milwaukee it's old reliable right now. They're chugging away and they're racking up wins but like we talked about before, it's the playoffs. Can they figure out their offense where it's just not give Giannis the ball and go 1-on-1 or 1-on-5? Can they figure out a way to make it a little bit more multiple?
And I think that's the thing that makes me most optimistic about them going into the playoffs. Like, they have not been as dominant this regular season as they have been in previous regular seasons. But when you watch them, part of the reason is they're using Giannis Antetokounmpo off the ball more. He was setting screens for Drew Holiday. He's not just bringing it up every time. They never switched on defense. They're switching on defense right now to try it out, and not all the time, but they're doing it some. And they look like a team that hasn't switched a lot. They're making some poor decisions with their personnel about when to switch and when to pressure. You learn those hard lessons over the course of a season so that when you break that out in the playoffs, it's not new. They're adding the kind of diversity to their repertoire, the more tools in the bag for Mike Budenholzer that they've needed, that they haven't done in the previous seasons. That gives me a little hope that when push comes to shove and the wall is created in front of Giannis and he can't just drive to the rim at will in the postseason, well, you know what? He's going to set a pick for Drew Holiday and roll to the rim, and good luck stopping that play, right? Like there's just, I think that they've got more tools now for the postseason, and they're using them in the regular season to figure out how to make it work. So that makes me optimistic if I'm a Bucks fan.
Yeah, and you see this a lot, right? So we're going to show this coverage, we're going to show this offensive play, and then in 2 months, 3 months later, when we really need to draw something up, we're going to go to that thing that we haven't showed in 3 months and then make one little tweak, and catch everyone sleeping. Oh, we saw it on tape one time just to put it on tape, and then we're going to change it. So 100%. I think you're right on there. And with Milwaukee, we'll see how they can refine these tools, because they're going to need it when in crunch time, when you have the 76ers in the Eastern Conference Finals, or you have the Brooklyn Nets and they're firing all cylinders. This game is about peaking at the right times, right? And you don't want to peak in game 25. Like you want to peak game 80, game 90, deep into the playoffs.
Exactly. And I think the Bucks are a little better positioned to do that this year. But like you said, it's all about the playoffs for them, right? And so we'll see.